Hey, everybody. Little bit of a news update that probably all of you should know about, especially if you fix your own car. If you have a classic or you just your daily driver is older and you just do all the repairs yourself. There's a major company that is in bankruptcy called First Brands that there's not a lot of news coverage on. Nobody's really talking about it. There's a couple articles every once in a while, and I'm going to go into how this is going to really affect you and explain why this is going to get very bad. And I'm going to preface this that my background is finance. I went to school for it. I did it corporately, did it privately. And a lot of the things that are happening here are really bad. And as things progress, it may get worse. And this is going to directly affect everybody that needs parts for their cars. And it's not just because the company's going to stop making them or they're going to slow down getting them out. It's just that this amount of supply is now going to be removed from the market. And this is not good. This is actually incredibly bad. So let's start at the beginning of this. We're going to find we're going to find out what a First Brands is. Now, First Brands is the owner of Anco, Autolite, Bargman, Bulldog, Cardone, Carlson, Carter, Chentric, Draw Tight Fram, Fulton, Hopkins, International Brake Industries, Lube and Finer, Michelin wiper blades, not the tires, Petroclear, Phillips, light bulbs and all for your car, Asbestos, you may have heard of them, Reese, Strong Arm, Teconcha, Trico, Westbar, Westfala. So they make all those brands. They were made into a conglomerate by a Malaysian-born guy named Patrick James. And what has happened with this, and I'm going to show some stories, and then I'm going to comment on it. So first, this is in October. First news story is from Secured Financial Network. That's how hard it is to find articles on this. You're not going to find this on NBC, ABC, Fox News. You're not finding it anywhere where there's news to be consumed. It's on like minor websites that really don't really checked by normal people. So the First Brands collapse, a cautionary tale. It's from October of this year, October 14, 2025. This is almost 2 months ago. While lenders have always dealt with bad or problem loans, a part of the business, the size, complexity, and speed in which First Brands collapse into bankruptcy has rattled lending markets. The public bankruptcy filing listed the company's liabilities between $10 billion and $50 billion against assets between $1 billion and $10 billion. Reportedly, the catalyst for the bankruptcy filing was the company's inability to finance more than $6 billion on-balance sheet debt, plus $3 billion in off-balance sheet obligations, which apparently was not disclosed to many of its lenders, which, factoring, whether in the form of traditional factoring structure or a more nuanced true sales structure, provides source of cash reflected as the proceeds from sales of receivables, as opposed to a loan secured by receivables. Factoring structures without proper financial disclosures can obscure the contingent nature of this debt should the receivables purchased by the factor or encompassed in the true sale not be collected. Supply chain finance could also be used to create off-balance sheet debt when payment terms are extended above normal trade terms offered by the underlying supplier. Supply chain financing obligations are typically unsecured, due on the set date, and reflect a payable on the borrower's balance sheet. Here again, without proper disclosure, liquidity issues can be masked. First Brands bankruptcy filing, traditional lenders and off-balance sheet lenders are scrambling to assert their priority claims and avoid dilution by debtor in possession, finance, or competing claims. The value of the intercredit agreements, as well as the timing and description of collateral embedded in this respective UCC filing, will now come into play. So it goes on about, things are going to happen with debtor in possession financing. And so what happened is that First Brands not only took out regular loans, they also, and it was, I believe, from Jefferies Bank, which is in a lot of trouble at this point, but also they did basically hard money lending on their receivables, where you basically go to a guy or company and you borrow on that money you're supposed to receive, like almost a payday advance. Say it's $1 million receivable, you borrow 500, and then you pay a VIG. And I will use a VIG because they are literally like money lenders. They are like, they literally are, because you try like 30% on that. So you're going to pay 800,000 back. So you still make 200. You literally have, you leveraged your future by trying to keep running now. And this is what has been done in this company over and over again. So now this company's in bankruptcy. What has happened now, which is making this even worse, and there's another article I found, and this is from CarBuzz, and this was November 9th. So it's a month later. Its bankruptcy hangs in the balance, and it's a big deal. Recently, First Brand CEO Patrick James stepped down when the U.S. Justice Department probe started based on the company's dealing with creditors. Now, First Brands is accusing James of misappropriating millions, perhaps billions of dollars. And once again, we get reminded what they own. Via Reuters, the company claims in a lawsuit that James enriched himself and his family by misappropriating hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars from First Brands. The lawsuit filed by the U.S. Bankruptcy Court for the Southern District of Texas, and a spokesman for James said he's in a category that denies the baseless and speculative allegations contained in First Brands' complaint. We pointed out in previous piece coverings that the timing of James stepping down was not good. Look, now First Brands is claiming James transferred hundreds of millions of dollars from the company to himself and entities affiliated with him between 2018 and 2025, but mostly between 2023 and 2025, when James probably noticed was going to go tits up. And because, I mean, if you're running the place, before anybody else what's going to be true. That's an insane amount of money bounced around. So he was asked a response. He's not going to talk about it. So we have Fram, which is bad. First claim brand that James caused the company to incur $2.3 billion in liabilities through opaque financing in the private credit market, and cast a spotlight and exposure to some of the world's top financial institutions. So what's in the big picture? Well, First Brands isn't a well-known name. Almost everybody, even those who don't give a rip about cars, know at least some of the companies in First Brands family. Aside from common light bulbs from Philips and Enco wipers, it owns 4 brake companies, international brake companies, Asbestos, Centric, and Centric owns StopTech. Asbestos and Centris are well known for cost-effective OEM quality replacement brakes for OEM parts, while StopTech is aimed at premium performance market. International Brake Industries provides the smaller parts for brake systems and brake kits. So literally, if your old car, you're using these parts. This is pretty terrible. So if First Brands to go under, it would leave the shelves at auto parts store with a little light. Most likely, though, the brands would be sold off to another corporate collecting aftermarket parts. All right, so this is from last month. Okay, that sounds fine and good that there will be continuation. Unfortunately, this is what's happened. And this is on the debtor in possession financing, which is a special kind of financing meant for companies that are in bankruptcy. So basically, they end up giving working capital, and they are first in line, superseding previous debt, previous loan holders, bond holders. They are first in line. This happened. Their debtor in possession loans have collapsed. Usually this doesn't happen because when you're in bankruptcy court, the money that, the bankruptcy court's going to organize it and make it so that if especially something this big, you're making it a continuing concern. But what happened is that two people that are in the debtor in possession loans, and it's for $1.1 billion. And it could be rolled up to 1.5, up to $1.8 billion. Well, what happened is that two of the companies that had done this have backed out. And a result of the significant confusion, some customers have withheld home payments to debtors, including the factoring investors, The motion Alvarez and Marshalls, which serves as financial advisors, around $150 million is owed to First Brands. In addition, First Brands said A&M has collected $106 million in receipts that were not part of any factoring agreement, bringing the total amount of frozen to $250 million. $250 million is now not being able to be paid. So these funds are a property that debtors are desperately needed to maintain operations, finance new inventory purchases, and otherwise alleviate the strain on debtors' already tenuous customer and vendor relationship. Despite the motion being filed, First Brands dip loan fell to about 37 points last week, from price above par to 68 to 70 cents on the dollar on December 9th. This is actually horrific. Debtor in possession loan has collapsed. It is now unsure how First Brands is going to operate because their money is not coming in. Plus, with James being investigated for very, very, very nefarious things, this is not going to be a straight up, bankruptcy where things get reorganized and things move forward in a quick manner. It could take a year, maybe longer. And the problem is sell off stuff now has become more difficult because now there's a lawsuit involved. And because there's a lawsuit involved, to be able to unload these things to other companies, because there are companies that can buy like the brake section, the Fram oil section, all the towing stuff that they own. Yeah, it can be bought. But the problem is now you have a lot of hands that are in the pot and a criminal investigation, which means all the assets of those companies are part of a criminal investigation by the Department of Justice. And you have a personal lawsuit of the companies that lent them money. So now you have all these different factors happening. Now, let me show how this actually really affects you as a end user. And here is just, all right, so I went to Advanced Auto Parts website, and I just pulled up Fram because they are literally a major Fram. So we have, there's 187, almost 200 of them in Advanced Autos thing. And look what happened. This is a problem. They're all sale price because they're unloading them at this point. They're obviously not getting new supply. I mean, if this is a time to start buying, I don't recommend Fram, but I would go and buy other oil filters before this goes totally tits up, because the market is going to get squoze. Now, the other thing, Cardone. Look how much Cardone supplies. O'Reilly, Advanced Auto, they are carparts.com, they are Amazon, Rock Auto, and this is just their brake part line, and this is what they remanufacture. And a lot of times if you can't get a new brake booster, because a lot of us can't, this is what you'll end up using. This is in trouble of not being able to operate very soon. So what is going to happen, and I'm unsure, there's really no clear path. And then when you talk about the brake products, and yes, Supercharged Turbo Demon making an appearance, I don't know what's going to happen like for brake products, because a lot of us use Racebestos, Centric, Power Stop. Those are things that we use, especially as old car people and or performance car owners. You're going to use these products. And at this point, it's very unclear what's going to happen, but whatever it is not going to be good. This is literally the Lehman Brothers of car parts. I mean, seriously, if you remember back to 2008 when Lehman Brothers collapsed, and it actually showed, and nobody knew how bad it was. And in fact, the investigators still haven't unwound most of what Lehman Brothers did because it's that complex. Literally, the way this company did their financing is that complex. We don't know how many loans they have taken out on things. We don't know if their supplies are going to be continuing. We don't know if it can even be sold within the next year, if they're going to reorganize, broken up into pieces, run independently. If you need consumables for your car, buy them now. I'm talking brake pads, brake rotors, oil filters. Buy them now, because as this goes on, there's going to be a shortage. I don't know if it's going to be long-term or short-term, but there will be a shortage of things because there is going to be a contraction in supply. And this is a major company that is not going to be making things. And the other part is to be sold off. They're going to be trying to find American companies to buy these things. So a lot of this stuff is made in America, and they're going to try to keep that because of just the way things are. You always have to remember the political part of it. So this is going to be ugly, to put it mildly, very ugly. And we're all going to be affected by it very badly. That's really what I wanted to try to get out there. And honestly, please share this because other people need to hear this. I don't really see much being talked about this. And this is very, very bad. And this is going to affect every one of us as car guys. Even if you're not a car guy, it's going to affect you because you're not going to be able to buy parts for your car, or the price of the parts is going to increase dramatically. Because that's literally, at the end of the day, that's what's going to happen because of a supply problem. Even if they get bought, you got to recoup the cost. I want to hear your comments on this. This is major. Every time you dig deeper on this, it gets uglier and uglier. And for dip people to actually be kind of like hesitant, and this is what they do for a living, they finance companies in bankruptcy. That's a scary thing. And I'm unsure how it's going to pan out. So please, share this, like it. And if you got something, just please subscribe because this really needs to get around to people that, have cars in America, even in overseas, because they actually do supply stuff in Britain. It's really not a good thing. This is a very bad situation, which has gotten a lot worse very, very fast. So that's what I have for now. Thank you very much for watching. If you have a cool car or something fun to drive, take it out because, well, you'll make someone's day, probably your own. And I'll catch you really soon.